Okay, so the next sort of bit of talking, if that's what you want to call it, is going to be about mindsets. Okay, so kind of, I guess it's attitudes, ways of thinking, and mindsets that lead towards success. So we were talking a little bit about making it before, and that means slightly different things for different people. But how do you get to that point? So what mindsets do you need? What frames of mind do you need in order to make it?
I think a lot of them things did start getting mentioned before, didn't they? When you can't help but avoid talking about it. Passion is the big one, obviously, isn't it? I think a willingness to work very hard, as was mentioned. There is no glamour. It's just that overall attitude and motivation, self-motivation. It's no one else that's going to come and put that motivation in your hands, do you know what I mean, or give you the job on a plate. It's really about that self-drive, I think. You've really got to have that passion, drive. A willingness to take a lot of shit, basically, as well, without reacting, thinking of the invoice rather than the reaction. Because they will get a lot of that. I get most of my grief off American merchandise guys, actually, rather than bands. Who seem to come in with cardboard boxes of t-shirts and think they can boss you around all over the place. You could react in one way or the other, but walking out and I won't get paid, do you know what I mean? So you've got to have that kind of willingness to deal with different attitudes as well as having a good attitude yourself, you know. I think, you know, several words thrown about there.
Would you say that's a positive attitude, you think, then, towards people, even in the face of...
You've got to try and have that positive attitude. You know, when I first started this job, as I said, I did kind of blag it a bit. My first gig was Ash, the Irish band, who'd been around quite a while now. That was serious deep end for me. They did have their own engineers. They had a guitar tech, a drum tech, a bass tech. They even had a vocal tech. This is a guy who comes out and stands the microphone stand up, puts the mic on the stand, and puts a bottle of water out for the singer.
I do it.
Yeah.
I want to do it.
It's a lot less stress in that job than the engineering, I think. But I don't know how often you're going to get employed as a vocal tech, in all honesty. But I know after even not only that gig, but I went home feeling like crying and giving up, and maybe going back and being a postman. Because it was really hard work, but I did persist with that. You've got to have that persistence. You are going to get grief. It is going to be a challenge, but definitely try and stay positive in it. You know.
Yeah, determination's really important, and being able to deal with failure or not doing the right thing and learning from your mistakes. I attended Liverpool Institute of Performing Arts, and I applied for that when I was 17, so coming out of school. Didn't get in, and they were like, "You're a nice guy, we just don't think you're mature enough to move away from home," and all that caper. And I was gutted. I was like, right, that's the end of it. I'm not going to do it anymore. Why stop, obviously? And I just started working away in Northern Ireland, but at night time I'd go out and gig and manage my friends' bands and whatever. And then I got a bit fed up of it, and it came to the last day of UCAS a couple of years ago, and I threw the towel in with my job. I was like, no, I'm going to make a really good go of trying to do something in the music industry. Reapplied for LIPA, got it, and then I guess with here and LIPA and all sorts of music institutes and things like that, not to denigrate what's taught on it, but a lot of the time it's to do with the black book of contacts that comes with being there, or being in the room with the right people and having the right attitude to be able to go up and sell yourself in a confident and polite way, to go, I do this, I'm really passionate about it, give me a chance and to do it. Our degree, it's meant to be, well, the degree I graduated off, you don't learn how to write a business plan properly, you know, but you're put in rooms with like Universal and Sony and things like that, and those chances just don't come along. So you got to make those times right. So yes, do really well in school, but while you're there, have your head and shoulders above to be able to look around and go, well, this is what's happening in the industry, these are the contacts I can make, and go for it that way. So an awareness, I guess, a positive awareness. Another thing is to be nice to people. It's really, really easy. Manners are totally free, and they'll open so many doors for you.
Yeah.
Because if you walk up to someone with a pig ignorant attitude, they're just going to have nothing to do with you. Particularly, you know, myself and Louis were chatting about bands sending stuff through to you, and they want you to see potential. I mean, confidence is great, but you need to be realistic. You need to know where you're at and approach things in the appropriate way. There's quite a lot there.
Yeah, well, I think we're all probably going to say very similar things, because within any industry, if you want to make it, you've got to have, it's all very similar mindsets and everything. But yeah, definitely, as we were talking about before, desire and motivation is a big thing. Either if that's a love of money or a love of music, I love both, so they go together quite well. Yeah, you touched upon being realistic. You've got to be very aware of your limitations and when you can surpass them and when you can't. In context with function work, it's like if you get offered to do a jazz gig and you can't do jazz, don't do it, because it's only going to make you look bad. But on the same note, if you know jazz musicians, you can source those out to those people, and it again increases your reputation. I think also, as you're saying, being nice, I like to call it being professionally nice. In my line of work, I have to deal, and as you're saying before, having hard skin and dealing with that in the way. It's like, in my line of work, I have to deal with a lot of middle managers. I gig, especially I do a lot of weddings, and I go to a lot of hotels, and they're full of middle managers, so people who are going nowhere in their lives, and they've got this much amount of power, and they want to wave it around at you. So you've got to be able to deal with them in a professional way and not get angry with them. It's a very hard thing to do, but it's, yeah, being professionally nice. And it's saying being nice to everybody. Again, if I use basically doing like a wedding as an example, if you go to a wedding, there's always going to be middle management, you've got your bosses, and then you've also got your staff who are just like the waiting staff and the bar staff. Generally, those are the sort of people you want to be really nice to, because they're the people who will get you a coffee, get you a beer at the end of the night. They will sort out all the little things which really matter on a gig, even like telling you where to go to the nearest toilet. It makes
security guards and cleaners.
Yeah,
They're your
everybody.
best friends and everywhere in life.
Anybody
They know
you-
everything
yeah,
first.
exactly,
They know
yeah.
gossip or what's going on.
Anybody you deal with in the music industry, you want to be nice to them, because you don't know where they're going to end up. It's like the person who's cleaning the floor might one day be the guy who's on the phone saying, "Do you want a gig?" And if they remember that you've been nice to them, and again, being professionally nice, there is a difference, because you can just be nice and have a banter with someone. But if you're nice and you're showing them that you're nice, but you're still capable of doing your job, that goes a long way. So be professionally nice, everybody.
I'd almost say it's more important than knowing some of the art itself. I think that's been half of my success, being able to talk to people without aggression, without an attitude. You've got to get musicians on stage need as much respect as you do, because it's all working together, isn't it?
But yeah, when you turn up though, people see a band, they see, what I've had to deal with, I've done every type of gig. I've gigged in toilets all the way up into front of like 20,000 people. So I've done the length and breadth of every type of gig you'll think. So, but on the whole, you're going to be doing gigs where people don't know who you are, and they've already got a negative attitude towards you. Like, they think you're just coming in to have a mess around, just play your guitar, just make a bit of noise, and they don't recognise that you're there in a professional capacity. It's like, I'm a musician, but I see myself as a professional. I'm coming there to do a job. I'm being paid to do a job, and you don't get that respect. So it's very hard to deal with people who don't respect you, and they treat you like one of your staff, where in effect you're not one of their staff. You're, again, using a wedding as an example, you've been booked by their client, so you're working for the bride and groom effectively, and not for the venue, but you still have to work within the framework of the venue. So it's very hard to deal with sometimes, with somebody treating you like they are your boss when they're not. So they're coming at me with a lot of bollocks and a lot of aggression. But yeah, it's just dealing with it in a professional way, which I'm sure you'll all find will be very hard to deal with. So being professionally, I keep on going about being professionally nice is going to get you a long way.
You can even start practicing at college. You all work in groups together, instead of going on Facebook and bitching about each other or tweeting about, oh, that person in class said this, and everyone knows who you're talking about. Just don't. Keep it to yourself. No one cares. Move on. And it's like, if you boil it down to energy, it's a complete waste of energy. Focus your energy on being the best that you can. I know it's a really...
It is, though. It's like sometimes, at gigs, and I've had a manager just saying, oh, you can't put your stuff there and stuff, blah, blah. I'll try and explain to them why I need to do something without being aggressive. And if they see my point or not, it doesn't matter. It's done. I move on. Because you've got a job to do.
It's going to affect your performance if you're riled up by some stupid manager that you're never going to see again.
Exactly.
Also, it's not just about that particular one gig either. I mean,
That's right.
I've done gigs in the past where there's been no one there at all, and then someone 3 years later has said, I was at that gig and now I head up a department for whatever at some radio station or some festival, something like that, and it kind of comes back. And a lot of it is to do with patience, I think, and staying flexible and looking at things for the long term. Because there's this sort of conceit that what the creative industry is all about, sort of trying to knock down doors, and sort of it's all about one moment where you explode into the scene fully formed, and there you are. It's not really about that at all. It's about sort of gradually constructing a narrative about who you are, and especially now that you've got the internet where nothing goes away ever. I mean, people talk about social media as being this immediate thing. Well, yes, it is immediate, but it also archives everything. So something that you might have done 5 years ago will be the start of a story that sort of only gets to sort of the central arc, sort of later on in your life. And it's a question of looking at yourself from that sort of external point of view and seeing the entire, or as much of it as you can. And it's to do with being professional and also having imagination and flexibility. It's you don't always know exactly where you want to be. I mean, my ambitions when I was 16 was rock, punk, and that sort of thing, and then I now head up a sort of vaguely swing kind of band. I never saw that one coming, but it kind of makes sense when you look at the entire process. So keeping your ears open is very important. And you're talking about the little black book, and and knowing people. People always say it's not about what you know, it's who you know, but you can get to know people just with being nice to people, and but there isn't this kind of, obviously there's always an old boy network in every single part of life you encounter, but you can always get in there just by being someone who is trustworthy or imaginative.
We've said it, I've said it more than once, but being nice to people will go a long way, because a lot of the time people won't remember what you do, they'll remember how you were. Because if you do the best gig, but if you've pissed off the entire staff, they'll go, yeah, they're all right, but they were absolute idiots backstage, and that goes a lot further than any good performance will ever go. It's just reputation, being nice.
But don't be a pushover. have sort of your lines, which people you can't cross. I mean, the amount of times people don't want to pay you and that sort of thing. You've just got to have your, because you're a business essentially. Is this audience create on the art side or the technological side or both?
Music.
It's music. So it's But is it sort of is it musicians or is it like also engineers as well?
A bit of everything, to be honest. Yeah.
But I guess that's good because everyone has to kind of branch out into all sorts of things. Most of my band also are sound engineers and also are session players and that sort of stuff. So it's the only way of doing it really.
Yeah, that whole idea of perception you were talking about, sort of as an example, and we'll chat about it afterwards. I think we're going to chat a bit about what Liverpool Sound City is and what opportunities there are for you either to come and play or come and work as volunteers across all parts of the festival. But an example of it is this guy turned up at the festival in May there, wouldn't say booty a goose. He was really timid, really shy. And we just had a chat about what he wanted to do, and he really wasn't sure. And we just sort of let him have a go at a few different things. And he ended up working with Umbro on we have this thing called the John Peel World Cup. Load of bands and labels and stuff, throw in a bit of cash, it all goes to the Heart Foundation. It's good fun. It's just secondary part of the festival. But he worked with Umbro on their brand activation, and he really got into it. And at the end of it, they give him a job. And he was a volunteer. He was 17, and now he goes around the country doing brand activation with Umbro. I myself was a volunteer with Sound City, and then an intern, and now I'm a full-time member of staff. It's just determination. It's all about perception, because even when I was a volunteer with Sound City, everyone coming to Sound City just thought I was a member of staff. So yeah, it's all about that sort of perception.
And so what got you that? What got you that gig, and was it this positive thing?
So Dave Picciolinghi, the CEO of Liverpool Sound City, was a lecturer at LIPA when I was there, and we came in one day, and it was classic. There's only in that class there was only 25 of us, and it had been a big night the night before. There was a bit of fallout. I think there was only about 12 of us in the class, and there was just something struck me that day. It was like, I'm going to give it beans today. I'm really going to try and impress this guy. At the end of it, he gave me his card and he said, come in and see me. I went into his office, frightened by all these really cool people in this office, and he's like, right, what do you want to do? Give him an idea, and 3 years later, I'm now full-time employee. In that process, there was a step, volunteer, paid intern, and now full-time. But it was just going out and putting your face out there. And I mean, he said as well that his one piece of advice at the start was make yourself indispensable. Because we're such a small organisation, we have to be quite lean as individuals that you can sort of have your fingers in many pies of the business, so to speak. And he said, well, if you're not sure in your opportunity, anything you can see that's not quite working in the business or an opportunity, grab it, take ownership, own it, and then one day we'll turn around and it has to be done. It's like, oh, well, that's Niall's job. So that's how that went, really.
Right, great. So there's a lot of focus then on kind of having a positive attitude around people and all that stuff. What about as individuals? Can you give me some examples of mindsets that maybe don't relate to dealing with other people, but maybe it's to do with whatever it is your craft is? So for Dan, it's live sound, and for you guys, it's performing maybe and writing. And is there any mindset, kind of a state of being that you can get yourself into to help prepare for the craft itself, rather than just because I think that the people skills are really important, aren't they? But what about the craft itself?
I think that having a sense of perspective about it, so if you're doing a gig and the lights fail or something like that, rather than sort of storming off and saying, oh, I can't work in these conditions, make a joke of it. I mean, we've done, you're just sort of hanging in there, making having a laugh with it, and then people come in with candles, and then you're doing a candlelit gig. Suddenly that's an exclusive type kind of gig. Having that sort of attitude, bringing that sort of, using those accidents. And I always say that it's about kind of welcoming those accidents, because that's when you're going to have a unique experience. The same with, we've done shows where, I've fallen off the stage and got completely covered in mud, and I caught my groin on a crowd control barrier once, and that sort of stuff. At the time, it sort of feels like the end of the world, but then you sort of dust stuff off and laugh at it, and everyone goes, because when something bad happens on the stage, the audience kind of goes, oh no, it's going to be really awkward now, unless they really hate you and they're going to go, ha ha. But if they have that, if you can put them at their ease, they're going to go, wow, I'm glad, I feel safe with this band, they'll come again. And, it's positivity is very important.
Yeah, I'd definitely agree with that. As the old adage, the show must go on. You have to treat every performance like it's the biggest performance of your life, because regardless if you're playing to no people or 20,000 people, you should treat it the same, because as you were saying before, you don't know who's going to be in that crowd. And again,
But actually, I'd say you do know who's in that crowd, because it's just people, isn't it? And
yeah.
I mean, it doesn't matter if the people are heading up, huge labels or head up the BBC creative department, something like that. There's still people who come to the show who want to enjoy themselves.
They want to see a good show. That's all it is. Important. So it's and again that's sometimes it's a very hard thing to do, especially in the context of my work. Some of the songs I have played these songs well over 2,000 times, every weekend for 12 years. Some of the songs, a good chunk of it, I have played those to death. I could do them in my sleep, even if I was in a coma, underwater. But you've got to treat it like it's the first time you played it, like it's your favourite song. Most of the songs I play, I don't like, I won't listen to them, but they're songs that people dance to. My job as a function player is to get a party going, is to get people up and dancing, having a good time. So regardless if I'm feeling ill, sad, lonely, depressed, happy, joyful, horny, frustrated, angry, doesn't matter. I'm there to do a job. I'm there to put on a good show. And it's very hard. But if you get the right mindset, eventually, if you're not feeling right, but if you act that you're having a good time, eventually it confuses your brain to thinking that you are having a good time, and then adrenaline takes over, endorphins come through, and then you'll have a good time. But actually to do that is very hard, because a lot of people are very self-indulgent, especially musicians, but very self-indulgent people. But when you're doing a job, especially playing other people's music, you have to put it all out there, because that's the only way to get work, showing that you're doing a good job.
I think when you were saying about sort of that Zen-like place for your craft, I think maybe, but it's the same for all of us. It's not actually. It's the perception of that Zen-like, but actually inside you are on your toes. What's going to happen next? What's going to go wrong? How can I fix it straight away? I think an example of it, like what you were saying about what goes wrong on stage. A couple of weeks ago, we had to send out a mail out about an invite to an event, put the wrong date on it. We realised straight away. So we thought, well, we'll make humour of it. We send a mail out straight away going, we were so excited about this event that we got the date wrong. You know, and everyone was like, that's funny. And it gives a positive, it makes you look human, that you're not just a machine. Got to be on your toes all the time, I think. And like the whole idea of that place, it's about looking at, when we were chatting earlier about your expectations and your roles and your objectives. I think being able to see secondary objectives or like other things that you can harvest out of what you're doing. As an example, Milk Slice, the product that we're launching next year, it's not the first product that we've tried to launch. The product we tried to launch before, it just wasn't going to get to market. However, what we got out of the process of trying to bring it to market was a piece of research which we can now use to sell to other companies or use for our own stuff and things like that. You know, it's a piece of data. It's got worth. Just because what it was based on doesn't have worth, it does. So if you're able to sort of assess the situation and make sure that you can get as many objectives sort of ticked as you can.
That's interesting, because again, it's supposed an extension of that positivity mindset, isn't it? It's always trying to find the silver lining on the cloud,
well,
you know.
It failed, and
yeah.
I was good at it. In fact, I started Milk Slice because of watching Louis and some other guys chat at Unconvention in Preston, funnily enough. And the idea that I got off the back of one of their conversations just was never going to happen.
Your idea? Soon.
Yeah.
but I mean, like the things happening outside of the, you know, you always go into a project thinking this is the one thing, this is me, I'm going to be this band and that's it forever. But the most interesting thing happens as sort of satellites to that idea. I mean, I started writing a blog as just as kind of what it was like, kind of doing that weird tightrope between self-managing but also being supposedly creative and sort of having to sort of work out the business side of being a musician, but also still wanting to be a musician and then still be an artist. And those two things are very difficult to balance. I mean, I found that since, you know, being a professional musician, I've written less songs because my brain is just sort of in business mode most of the time, so I can't have to find time to write songs. But so I've started writing a blog, which is about the business, but it's also a creative thing to write anything, isn't it? So, and then the blog kind of became, it's very widely read now, just because it's sort of about things like, you know, the light's not coming on, that kind of thing, and about how it does happen to everyone, and so yeah, that's
Can I ask where I can look at that blog?
Yeah, well, it's in two places. Keyholeobservations.com is where it sort of started, but it's also just on my website, Barabbas.com, just integrated in there. And
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Okay, so music students, yeah, check out Louis' blog. It will tell you about what it's like to work in the music industry.
Me just ranting about things.
Right.